I have two siblings, Mason and Brittany. Our father died when we were young due to an undiagnosed heart problem. His parents had gifted them an old family homestead on a lot of land at their wedding and helped a lot to keep our family above water before they passed. Our mother finally found her feet after about 5 years of deep depression and did well for our family. But she was also very frugal. We had good clothing, but no fancy vacations. Our mother had ignored signs of bad health for years, even when we tried to get her to go see someone for it. She passed away recently due to late-stage cancer, leaving us with a lot. My siblings each got more than $150,000 in money, sentimental but expensive items, and furniture. I did not get the money. I received the house, the land, and some items. The house and land, which had been sold off bit by bit over the years due to Mom's declining health and inability to properly tend to it, is worth far below the $150,000 my siblings received. I had moved in with Mother near her end, and it really was only supposed to be temporary, as I believed the house would be sold after her passing and the money split 3 ways. I already had a plan to roommate with a friend and her family after Mom's death to make that process go more smoothly. Most of my stuff has been sitting in storage for almost a year. As the only one who worked from home, I could watch the home health workers and nurses to make sure they were being kind, doing their jobs, and not stealing. Mostly, it was to make sure they treated my mother with respect and kindness. But my brother did worry about someone walking off with her wedding ring since she was so attached to it. We all agreed for it to be placed in with her ashes. So I made a little setup and took care of her. My siblings came by frequently, 3 to 6 times a week, each of them. Mason had 2 kids, and Brittany only has 1, but they visited as well, though not as much near the end because it was hard for them. So in the weeks leading up to her death, my mother had me pack up what items went to who in large boxes and set them off to the side. My siblings hated me doing this, but understood it was what she wanted. The will was read. They checked their boxes to make sure my mom didn't miss anything when telling me to pack, and they left me to my house. Weeks passed, and I finally felt like I could start doing things to the house. Now, I did say the house was dingy. It's not worth $150,000, but the housing market is crazy, so I thought it was a bit of luck. It needs repairs. The roof, the chimney, the water heater, some pipes, the doors and windows for heating purposes, and everything inside is so darkly painted or made of wood that just sucks out all of the light. I immediately had people checking the roof, the chimney, and the water heater. My siblings offered to lend me the money, but I declined, as I had been saving for a while to buy an apartment or something small, since it is only me. I could also rent rooms for the local college students to get some of that money back. I picked out paints for different rooms, but decided to leave the wood flooring. As I started going through everything in the house, which had specifically been left to me as stated in the will, I began finding things. Money in books, and there are so many books. Money taped under beds, money folded into the fancy sheets, money hidden in the teapot and cups that have been passed down in the family, which we had never been allowed to touch in fear we might break them. I found jewelry in different boxes, hidden in the attic, the vents, in sock drawers. Some of it was so gaudy it had to be costume, but I put it all together, thank goodness I did, and took it to be appraised. The worth of the jewelry is nearly half of what my siblings got. Even the would-be costume jewelry is worth something. Even now, I'm still finding things. I found antique items, fancy watches, untouched clothing and bags with price tags still on them, belts and shoes still in their boxes. All of this was tucked away, apparently hidden and not talked about. Some of the clothing still had receipts, and since neither I nor my sister can wear them, I took them back to see if I could get the refunds or started selling them online, since again, everything left in the house was specifically left to me. I took the cash and used it to help pay for the immediate repairs, and it almost covered the whole thing. I looked through the jewelry and kept what I liked, which was very little as I am not into that sort of thing, and put aside some for my sister and my brother's daughter. I liquidated the rest and put that into savings. I also put aside some of the bags and belts and watches for my siblings and their families. We can't fit the clothes, but those things are easier to swap around. I invited everyone over and gifted them the items, telling them I had found them while I was cleaning everything out and thought they may like to have them. Everyone was happy to get them, and there wasn't much bickering among the kids. They asked what else I found, and I explained the jewelry I kept and the clothing I was selling off. My brother got a weird look on his face and asked if I had found any money. I told him I had, but tried to downplay it as mostly change and loose bills. He asked to see the money, and I grabbed a giant water refill container I had started storing all the coins in. He told me that was a lot of coins and asked if I was going to use it for the laundromat since I left them all loose. I rolled my eyes because I have a washer-dryer set. I told him there was no point in cashing them in until I cleaned the whole house. He told me to let them know so we could all split that and the money I got from selling the clothing. When I asked why, he said, so we can split it. I asked him why I would split it when they all had gotten large cash inheritances, sentimental and expensive things, and some other things. I literally got the house, the problems, the cleanup, and the nice things I did find that I thought they might like. I handed over without being asked to. He told me I didn't have to be a greedy jerk about it and to never mind. My sister gave me the side eye, but didn't say anything. But I feel guilty for misleading how much I had actually found, even though it was all put towards making the house better. To be clear, all of my mother's debts were paid, and she had money set aside for the funeral service and cremation. So am I the jerk? Now for the 4-day update. Firstly, I wanted to thank everyone for their kind words and bits of advice. I felt much better after reading so many of the NTA's comments. I also took to heart the shut your mouth comments, even if a few of them seemed a little rude. On to the update. My house still feels weird saying typing this, already had outside cameras due to when I moved in and installed them. But I did go and add more to the property line, inside the house in key spots and around the garage. I also put up no trespassing signs while I look through companies that do proper fences. The property is just small enough I can swing the fence. I did change the locks as soon as I read the advice to do so. I hadn't thought about that since I work from home. Mom also kept a spare hidden in a plant because my sister used to lose everything constantly, so I made sure to remove it and not replace it with the new one. I had to run into town for groceries and a few quick errands. I live on the outskirts with neighbors a bit of a distance either way, so they wouldn't notice anyone stopping by. I got a notification on my phone about movement, and I checked because I wasn't expecting any packages. My brother was getting out of his car, looked around, and checked the windows. He tried his key in the door and got upset. It didn't work. He checked the flower plant and kicked it over. The cameras around the house let me communicate, so I just said, "That was rude," into the speaker. He jumped and spun around to see nothing. I asked him what he wanted, and he demanded to know why I put up cameras. I said, "Because I'm a single woman living in the woods, you dumb shoot." He shifted from foot to foot before saying he would be back so we could talk, and he left. I messaged the video evidence of him trying to get in while I wasn't home to him, his wife, my sister, and her fiancé. With the message I sent, I changed the locks because I don't know who Mom gave them out to, like her friends, and I have cameras. Because of this attempt to get in while I'm not home, no one will be getting the new key. I don't just randomly try to get into your house when you're not home. He sent me a lot of nasty texts after that, trying to shame me for doing that. I told him he shouldn't be doing things he doesn't want others to know about, and that it's a reflection on him, not me. He told me I was a witch and blocked me. My sister thinks I went too far by telling his wife because she is threatening to take the kids to her mom's. And she thinks I went too far by showing her fiancé because now he doesn't want him to have keys to theirs for emergencies. Somehow, I get the feeling this isn't over yet. Time to adopt a very big dog. Now for the update 2 days later. Firstly, thank you everyone who made new comments and gave more advice. I particularly enjoyed the entire mini thread about the geese guards. Super amazing and cute idea. But I have a terrible fear of birds, so I am adopting a bonded pair of doggos from my local shelter. Once my name clears from the cruel to animals list of these gross people aren't allowed to adopt list, I can take them home. No pictures yet, I'm afraid. I really wasn't set on making another post, or if I did, it would be when this is all washed and done. I did start a paper trail with both the police and a lawyer, who is a family friend. I documented the attempted break-in, didn't press charges, but had them speak with my brother and have him put on notice. He ended up getting new phone numbers, yes, with an S, to contact me to berate me and shame me for sicking those pigs on him. I took all of those messages to the lawyer and sent off a few things. A cease and desist for the alarming numbers of calls, texts, social media DMs, and emails he sent me. Some were full of rage about how I took his kids from him, and the others were about how he knew you rat witch found money in the house. Not once did he mention the post, and honestly, I'm done enough with him that I don't care if he sees it because Lawrence says you can't touch this Mason, fake name. Anyway, my sister Brittany, fake name, asked me out to coffee and apologized for taking Mason's side. She just didn't want the friction and thought the three of us could have worked it out together instead of getting others involved. She and her fiancé have the understanding that he handles his family and she does hers. I guess, for disputes and things. So by sending it to him before she had a chance to even react to it, it felt like overstepping because I didn't give her the chance to do literally anything before her fiancé was losing his mind. I did apologize because I hadn't thought of it like that. I asked her what she would have done if I had just sent her the video, and she said she would have sat on it for a day to think about it, and then probably would have asked me for more information or talked to him to see what the hell he was thinking. She also said I was a fucking moron for saying the gifts I had given everyone had been from the house. I should have said something about a bonus at work or something. I have no reason to trust her, but it makes sense. So I'm going to cautiously keep in mind that she does have a harder time getting thoughts and emotions across in a normal way. Our parents weren't into the whole test your child for XYZ, so she has been struggling with the idea of being tested for certain neurodivergent tendencies. All this said, I found something really weird and I don't want to open it. In the basement, tucked far into a corner and buried behind a bookshelf and under boxes and boxes of things, is an ancient-looking freezer. It was and still is plugged in. It's running. It was buried and dusty in a way that I know there is no edible food inside of it. But you ever get that feeling that something just isn't right? Do I open it? Do I pretend I never saw it? Do I have someone else open it? Any ideas about why it was hidden? My one friend joked it was my grandfather's game box, and it has decades-old deer inside of it. Is that a thing? Now for the next day's update, I wanted to thank everyone for the words of advice and ideas how to go about finding out what is in the freezer. I also have a mini update on Mason, fake name. I will get the freezer out of the way because I know so many are eager to hear about it. I called over my lawyer friend Lawrence, fake name, neat little play on words, yeah, and explained that I needed more information on a few things, but would need a house call because of the contractors coming and going. When he arrived and no one was there, he looked annoyed until I explained the freezer. He told me if we found a body, he was bailing, but was laughing as we went down to the basement. This was all yesterday. We put on gloves and the masks. He held the camera and said all this identifying stuff like date, time, address, etc. I opened it. Inside were important documents sealed in a lot of plastic. There were also old bottles of moonshines, frozen pressed flowers in a book with dates, a bit of cash, coins specifically, and an ancient-looking porcelain doll. The documents were birth certificates and death certificates going back quite a while. It looks like I would have had another sibling if they had lived, and I would have had 3 more aunts if they had lived, and a few other even older relatives. We figure the flowers were from the funerals or services, considering the dates attached to the pages the flowers were pressed. The bottles, jars, really, of moonshine looked old. The only reason I knew it was moonshine was thanks to Lawrence. He said alcohol doesn't usually freeze and he opened it, and told me based on the smell, the coins will be appraised very soon, as I am also still going through all the other coins I have found in the curtains and other odd places. Thank you to the Redditor who told me to look in the curtains. As for the doll, it looks very old but in good condition. It was in a box and wrapped with cloth, old newspapers, and more. Lawrence thinks the hair on its head is real and human because it certainly isn't synthetic. I had to dry it off after it thawed, and there's a name smudged on its foot. It's sitting on my living room coffee table right now. I'm not sure what to do with it. The newspaper dates give us a vague idea of the time frame it was put away in, and it's old. On to Mason. His wife has filed for divorce. She is going for full custody. She has the kids with her at her mother's. She reached out to me and explained that Mason had told her the only thing left was the house, and it was willed to all three of them, and that he was waiting for me to buy out his part of the house. But when I sent that message, something seemed hinky. So she started to dig. Mason has maxed out all their credit cards. The house is now on a reverse mortgage when it had been paid off, and he opened a few in her name. He didn't use that life-changing money left to him to pay off any of that. She isn't sure where the money went, but when she locked down her credit, it left him unable to use the cards he took out in her name, and it sparked a massive fight. I can't even begin to imagine where the money has gone. He doesn't have new cars, new devices, new anything. Their two kids, a 14-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son, are both old enough to understand what is going on. They won't talk to him until he tells them why they are losing their childhood home, why he hurt their mom, and where all the money is. My niece knows all the accounts are empty, including her college account, and she is furious. My nephew isn't as worried about college, understandably. Mason keeps messaging me about how it's all your fault and just overall being nasty. I would have blocked him if it wasn't for the fact we are collecting evidence. My sister admitted he is ranting to her about it all, but she doesn't want to get him upset at her because they live just a few blocks away from each other, so it's easier for him to come knocking on her door. Despite that, she will not be staying with me. My fence should be starting to be built any day now. I will be getting my 2 dogs tomorrow. I think I have everything I need. So that is everything so far. Now for the update. Hello everyone. I'm sorry it's been a bit since I updated. Between the fence, the new dogs, and problems with Mason, I just didn't have time to update. So to start, I am very sorry to say that I have forgotten my doggy tags. When I have time or remember, I will post them on this profile. One is a Pitty and one is a German Shepherd. They are both high energy, but not what one would consider pups, though they are my pups. Next, thank you everyone for your wonderful insight and ideas. I did pass along to my soon-to-be ex-sister-in-law about checking her children's credit. I checked mine as well. The kids have smaller problems with their credit now, thanks to Mason. She locked down credit, and I sent Lawrence, my lawyer, to speak with her, and he set her on a path of wrecking Mason with one of his lawyer friends who specializes in this sort of thing. My credit was not touched, but I have locked it down, and I warned my sister of the same, but I haven't heard back. To clear a few things up quickly, when my sister-in-law told me they were underwater on the house, I had translated that to a reverse mortgage because there was a big celebration years ago about them finally paying it off. When she locked down her credit, she jumped through hoops and got the several cards that she did not open shut down. I don't know those details, but it was done very quickly. Yes, several. So for the confusion, I do apologize. I wanted to keep things short. I won't be able to do much in terms of trust funds for my niece and nephew, unfortunately, but I am the trustee or overseer of the ones my mother had set up for them. Debating heavily on telling them or my sister-in-law because word might get back to Mason. I fronted 3 months worth of rent for my sister-in-law so she could get her own place so that the courts had no reason to look at her with suspicion. Mason is quickly going to lose the house, and I don't want any reason to chance her custody. Another reason I did that was so that she and the kids could get to somewhere he didn't know about. All contact is now through lawyers. Mason went to her mother's house while they were all out to a school function and destroyed the place. They are still trying to figure out if anything was taken. Furniture, pictures, and decorations were smashed. Clothing, including his own kids, were shredded, and he threw mud all around the house. He popped tires on my sister-in-law's car and threatened the neighbors. The neighbors called the cops. There was a problem during the arrest, and he and one of the cops were sent to the ER for stitches. How he managed bail money, I don't know. But I suspect he bullied our sister Brittany into it, because she has been radio silent during all of this. I think he may have taken up staying with her. The house is going to be taken any day now, and my sister-in-law is fighting to keep her car. That was what my sister-in-law told me. Mason has been nonstop messaging and calling me. He even started a smear campaign on social media, getting our extended family to ream me out for not supporting a grieving man who just lost his mother, his wife, his kids, his house, and his dignity. When I spoke with them, it quickly became apparent he circulated one hell of a story that painted me as a wicked sister who stole everything from him. And that's why I could afford to do all the work on the house. Like I have a drug problem and dried up everything he had for drugs, rehab, and more. All nonsense. Even after talking with them, not very many believe me. My fence is being built, and work around the house is still ongoing. I added a home security system and a few hidden baseball bats because some of the messages I got about what he could do scared me. I added extra locks around the house and am considering getting rid of the sliding glass door or getting something to lock it like a gate. Lawrence warned me putting too much going forward might harm my case of a restraining order and slander. So if I update, it might not be for a while unless something wild happens. Am I the idiot for refusing to fund my boyfriend's Spider-Man fantasy while he ignores his real-life responsibilities? My F-22 boyfriend M26 asked me for $1,500 to buy a Halloween costume. Me, 22, female, and my boyfriend, 26, male, have been together for around 4 years. I recently was asked by him if he could get a personal loan under my name so that he could buy a Halloween costume. I am feeling a bit unsure of how upset I should be, or if I even should be upset about it. To explain his current situation, he currently has around $5,000 worth of debt and does not have a job and lives off payments from the government currently. When he originally asked, I got quite upset, since for the last year, his financial situation has continued to get worse, as I currently pay for his groceries and essentials, and without aid doesn't have basic essentials like toilet paper or soap, let alone food, and can only meet the payments of his rent at the moment. When he asked me for the loan, it was about $1,500, and he wanted to have me open a personal loan since no financial lenders would give him any more money than he currently has on loan. I don't know why I felt like it was my breaking point, but I just cried and told him he was childish for asking me for money to buy something so stupid, and haven't spoken to him for the last couple days. He asked me for money when he already relies on me to buy his groceries and is in so much debt from buying video games and action figures. I'm struggling to figure out what to even do or say to him. The reason he wants to loan so much from me is for more of the same non-essential things that got him into debt in the first place. A custom-made Halloween costume seems like an outrageous thing to want to purchase in his current situation, but he doesn't see it as a big deal, since in his words, it's not a lot of money for you. And I think I just need advice on what approach might work to help him understand. No matter how much I have tried to explain the strain, his dependence on me to support him with his basic needs has been when we don't live together. And despite me trying to suggest loan consolidation or a selected person to manage his funds on his behalf could benefit him, I feel like my approach isn't working. I would appreciate advice on what steps I can take or what approach I might be able to use instead in regards to talking to him and trying to resolve this issue in our relationship currently. Now for a few important comments. One commenter said, "Tell him it's not a lot of money for you because you would never in a million years even contemplate something as foolhardy as taking out a 4-figure loan for a holiday that's a months away, and B, can be celebrated just as if not more effectively with an old bedsheet and a pair of scissors." Or no, just no works. or simply laugh as you walk away, hopefully for good, because I don't know why you're trying to convince yourself this is reasonable, unless you want to spend the rest of your life in debt, catering to an overgrown 5-year-old's every whim. Then OP replied, I think I'm struggling and rationalizing it because my boyfriend has already invested about $700 into the costume and has been stressing and nonstop talking to me and showing me pictures of what costume he wants, and cried to me over the phone about how he has always wanted to dress up in this costume since he was a child. He has never mentioned this character or costume to me since we have been together. He stressed how life-changing this costume was that he told me I would happily starve for weeks if it means I have this costume, which I really don't want to have him do. Another commenter responded, he hasn't invested $700. He has spent $700 he does not have. This is hugely disturbing behavior. If he starves for weeks because of this costume, he wins a Darwin Award. Why are you still dating this idiot? OP then clarified, it's a Spider-Man costume with like ridged webbing, and it's screen accurate to the amazing Spider-Man costume from the movies. A top commenter added, Little Meow girl, come on, have some respect for yourself. This man is already a clown. He doesn't need any costume. Now for the update. I'm sure most of you thought this was a dumb question to begin with and really tore through me. But for those who were kinder with their advice, I really appreciated it, along with the private messages that offered kinder words. I know I seem like an absolute idiot, but I think being with my boyfriend for so long, as well as since high school, made me feel extremely attached and like I wouldn't know what to do if he wasn't around. So in that way, I was definitely dependent on him. To clarify things, it was for a Spider-Man costume, and no, I did not give him the money. I spoke to him, and he tried explaining that it was his cousin who forced him to ask me for the money, which I didn't believe, and ended the relationship, since a lot of your comments made me realize I have a seriously low standard for my dating pool, and will have to reconsider my standards moving forward. I guess the reason I indulged this man for so long was because I felt pity for him and his situation. He lives off government disability payments due to having autism, ADHD, and severe clinical depression. And I think as we progressed in our relationship, I slowly became his carer after his family moved away and had no one to take him to his appointments, especially after Infection 19. His carer quit, so he didn't have someone to help him in his day-to-day tasks. I understand now that should have never been my job to pick up, and blurring those lines made me become financially and emotionally used as he had no one else to depend on. Anyways, I have broken up with my boyfriend. I will try to listen to you guys and find someone who is more on my level of stability and self-reliance. Thank you everyone for listening and giving me the wake-up call I needed to get out before I committed to marrying or having children with him. Am I the idiot for demanding full compensation for my destroyed Halloween decorations instead of accepting a quick fix? A few houses on our street, including ours, were targeted for vandalism over the weekend. The culprits, a group of 4, 12, and 13-year-old boys, were caught on multiple security cameras. They were arrested but released to their parents the same evening. The families are eager to sweep this under the rug and offered to pay for all of the damages with little argument. For the other neighbors, that's great. But for us, I handmade almost every single decoration, including the furniture they destroyed, and I have no idea how to calculate our monetary damages. I can calculate exactly how much it would cost me to recreate each item. I can calculate exactly how much it would cost me to purchase all of the supplies necessary to recreate each item. And I can calculate how much it would cost to buy a similar item already made. I'm not sure which way to go, or if I should calculate my time spent making these things, or if I should charge for all supplies purchased, or just the amount used. My husband grossly overestimates my skills. He thinks I'm like the Picasso of Halloween decorations, God bless him, and thinks I should charge the cost of supplies purchased rather than supplies used, and $15 per hour for the time it would cost me to recreate everything, which would take weeks. I've been working on our current display for going on 4 years now. Neighbors think I should charge how much it would cost to buy the item already made, which is notably more expensive, even factoring in $15 per hour, so I can be restored right now instead of having to make everything again. I'm leaning towards charging only for supplies purchased, because I obviously can't buy just exactly the amount of fabric, paint, etc. I'm going to use. So, how much do I request for reimbursement? Now for a few comments. One commenter said, asking for an hourly wage for recreating your decorations is perfectly reasonable. $15 per hour seems like a reasonable amount to request. Do you have a way to accurately calculate how many hours it did and/or will take you to recreate or restore everything that was damaged? Another way to calculate the value of your time is to browse a website such as Etsy and look up the price for similar items. If 3 sellers are asking an average of $45 for a similar item you made, then $45 would be a reasonable demand, even if it only costs you $10 to do it yourself. You are certainly entitled to the value of the item, even if that exceeds the amount you spent to create it. Keep in mind that anything you've made and used from years prior would not be new and should not be calculated based on new replacement price. It all boils down to what you feel your time and skills are worth, and you have multiple ways to calculate this. Don't be afraid to ask for too much. That leaves room for negotiation. If the parents are willing to settle for a higher amount, they certainly can, even if it's more than the amount to which you are legally entitled, and you shouldn't feel bad about that. Then the original poster replied, "Thank you so much. The comment about needing therapy because I don't know how much money to ask for put me off for a second. Thanks for giving me an actual answer." How would I calculate depreciation? Some of the decorations I made 4 years ago, so we put them out every year for about 1 month. So that would be 4 months total use plus storage for 4 years. Does that mean I can only ask for depreciated value, even though I can only replace it with something new or newly handmade? Didn't even think of checking Etsy. Good idea. The commenter responded, "This is where it gets a little tricky. You need to determine the useful life of each item, subtract the years already used, and determine the value based on the remainder of each item's useful life. As a very basic example, you have a scarecrow that would last 10 years before needing replacement, and you've already had it for 4 years. The scarecrow would have a remaining useful life of 6 years. For a $100 scarecrow, that would mean a depreciated value of $60. You can do some research online to learn more about depreciation and how to calculate these things. But again, don't undersell yourself. You aren't just seeking reimbursement for your actual damages, but for the inconvenience as well. Don't feel you can only request exactly what you lost, and don't be afraid to start with a high number. It leaves room for negotiation, and if the parents opt to pay your first number, even better. Keep in mind you would not be able to file suit for damages after settling, so ensure you cover everything in your estimate. Another commenter added, "I am not a lawyer, but I do make handmade items to sell. The general rule of thumb to figure out pricing is materials plus labor, expenses, profit equals wholesale x 2 retail. Labor is your hourly rate x hours worked. Expenses could be gas to get to the store to buy the materials, anything incidental to make the item. You know roughly how much it costs to make the item. Go on Etsy and try to find comparable items. Deduct your cost and labor, and you would have a rough figure for the profit. Don't shortchange yourself. If I were in your shoes, I would figure how much it would cost for me to make them and how much it would cost to purchase handmade items from someone else. I would go with the higher amount and add some money for negotiation, as others have said. I would also want the kids to clean up all of the destruction they caused. Good luck." The original poster replied, "This is so helpful. Thank you. Do you mind me asking what you factor in for labor, like what you charge for an hourly rate for yourself? I don't fully get what an expense is either. I don't usually go out specifically to buy things. I usually pick them up while I'm running errands, plus I order a lot of things online. So I'm not sure what other expenses I would have there." The kids are actually barred from the neighborhood right now, fortunately, unfortunately. I don't know if it was done by the police or by the neighborhood. We live in a gated community, but they cannot step foot here for the next 12 months. There's a lot more to the story than what happened this weekend as well. Our houses were targeted for a reason, and these kids are well known for causing problems in school and around town. It's a shame because most of their parents are really trying, but whenever these boys get together, all hell breaks loose. None of us wanted to see them in jail, but unfortunately, that's probably the only thing that will work at this point. My husband met with the other parents and residents a few days ago without me, and surprisingly, they agreed to the rounded-up amount with no argument. Yesterday afternoon, all 4 boys came with their parents, accompanied by the police officer who handled the vandalism. The boys apologized, gave us each 4 handwritten apology letters, and then each boy gave us a small Halloween decoration they bought themselves to help us start rebuilding our displays. It was a really sweet gesture, and they seemed genuinely apologetic and like they really understood the seriousness of what they had done. The parents handed us an envelope with the full amount we calculated, plus an extra $100. When we questioned the extra, they said it was for inconvenience. One of the parents also gave us a jar of homemade pumpkin butter and her own apology note. The officer asked us to sign paperwork saying we were fully reimbursed for the damages the boys caused that night, which we did. He's supposed to mail us a copy of the paperwork later this week. After today, the boys aren't allowed in the neighborhood at all for at least a year, but we don't think they will pull anything like this again after all of this anyway. It's been raining off and on all week, so we've had plenty of time to work on new decorations for our display. We finally started putting things out again yesterday. We still have a lot to go and probably won't finish everything before next weekend. But between store-bought replacements, some donations from friends and family, and the things we have done so far, it's looking pretty good.